God bless you, please, Tommy Robinson. Britain loves you more than you will know. Whoa, whoa, whoa. What great news we've had today with Tommy being released. I mean, it was quite sad when we saw him coming out of prison because he's lost so much weight. And he did seem quite anxious, you know, although he was being harassed by the media. And what an answer he gave. I'm not speaking to you because you're a bunch of liars. Tommy will speak to Britain when he is ready. And he's got a lot to speak about.
Why would I have anything to say to you? All you do is lie. You've lost all the main thing that you do is lie. The British public no longer believe you. I've got a lot to say, but nothing to you. That's it. To the British public.
It's been some ordeal he's been through. Because as we know, he was stitched up. Totally stitched up. And the ruling today vindicated that appraisal, because the haste in which they tried Tommy, the nature of the trial, the content, the fact that he was speaking on Facebook and the judge didn't even bother to look at what he'd said, and yet still accused him of trying to to undermine the trial. And then the sentence itself was horrendous. 10 months in prison for simply speaking a few truths that were in the public domain outside a court of law. So, you know, the whole thing was horrendous. And then his imprisonment, the fact that he spent so much time in solitary confinement, was really, his life is in danger constantly. No wonder he looked stressed when he come out. He's been really through it, Tommy. I mean, his family said he was depressed inside, and he needs a good holiday to get his strength back. But when it first happened, I thought, oh, Tommy. And I can still remember the judge looking out the window and smirking and laughing. We've got you now. And they thought they had him. And they put him through this kangaroo court, incarcerated him, put him in a horrendous situation, and probably thought this is the last we'll see of Tommy Robinson, you know, the English folk hero. It looked bleak for him. Because not only were the judiciary stitching him up, the media stitched him up. The Daily Mail did a huge article, the racist they call him. Tommy's not a racist. He's a decent human being. He's standing up for vulnerable people, for girls who've been raped, for victims of jihadi violence. You know, he's standing up for people who've been attacked and have been abused and who the authorities have let down. The million English girls that were let down by the police and the social services in this country. Tommy was standing up for justice. That was his whole heart. Tommy is not an evil guy. Steve Bannon said he's a good guy. He's not a bad guy. Tommy's solid. He is the backbone of England. And yet the media wouldn't give him an inch. You'd have thought there'd been at least one newspaper would have broke rank and said, look, this is totally unfair. This incarceration. He did nothing. Literally, he did nothing. The contempt of court charge is a joke. I know that there's a potential for a retrial, but I don't think that will take place because I think Tommy has been totally vindicated in this ruling today. I think it would be very difficult to prosecute him from this point onwards. But anyway, the politicians, the members of Parliament, the people who are supposed to represent us, the people we elect, did any of them break ranks and say, look, what's happened to Tommy is a terrible injustice. This length of incarceration for doing nothing, for simply being a journalist, is unacceptable. Not one British MP spoke out. Gerald Batten, I give him credit, the leader of UKIP, he spoke out. Lord Pearson spoke out in the House of Lords, and thank God for that, because he gave Tommy some protection in the prison system. Because Tommy was under serious threat. We're now hearing stories about what actually happened in prison. That inmates went to his door and threatened him, that his door was left open by the prison guards at times. This will all come out when Tommy actually addresses us and fills in the gaps. But it looked bleak for Tom, because the stitch-up went right across the British establishment, which tells you a lot about the British establishment. But somebody up there likes Tommy, because the Americans didn't like what had happened, and they let the British government know their discontent. Sam Brownback, Trump's ambassador for religion, he said, look, if Tommy doesn't get justice, if this case isn't revisited, we're going to speak out against it, the American government. We're going to call it for what it is, a political imprisonment. Tommy was a political prisoner, because there's no other explanation why he was treated the way he was. And now the fact that the Americans were on their case made the British government sit up and pay attention. And then, of course, a congressman spoke out on the floor of the House of Representatives in America and raised Tommy's case. It was a live issue in America. And Donald Trump Jr. tweeted in support of Tommy. And then Steve Bannon spoke out in support of Tommy. But there were two characters, Daniel Phillips, of the Middle East Forum, which is a sort of an organisation to expose the true nature of the Islamization of the West. He put money and organisational skills and effort behind the campaign to free Tommy. And he was supported, of course, by Ezra Levant, who played the starting role. I mean, for Rebel Media, Tommy and Rebel Media went their own ways last year, but Ezra Levant was the knight in shining armour. When he was needed, he turned up, and he got the funds necessary for Tommy to have a powerful legal team to really challenge this abuse of justice, of the legal system.
Tommy has switched lawyers. He now has a top law firm that is filing an appeal. I believe they are giving Tommy the world-class representation that he needs. I will let their legal work speak for itself, but it is my view that finally someone is addressing everything from Tommy's treatment in prison to the hasty manner in which Tommy was tried and convicted, and of course the shocking 13-month prison sentence.
Now, one of the abuses was putting Tommy in solitary confinement meant he couldn't get access to lawyers, and he only had 30 days in which to appeal his sentence, and those 30 days expired before he did so. Now, we were told by the media that Tommy pleaded guilty. He never pleaded guilty because he never spoke in court. There was no need to plea because it was a bail hearing or breaking of bail. So Tommy was in serious danger. I mean, he was being sort of besmirched. He was being denigrated as someone who was a criminal, who pleaded guilty. He had no right of appeal. He'd lost his right to any appeal because he'd gone up, expired. But Ezra Levant got lawyers who were capable of opening this case up again. They pointed out that Tommy, because of the nature of his incarceration, needed more time to make an appeal. And they got the nod for that because they had a very powerful argument. These were powerful people that Ezra Levant employed on behalf of Tommy's legal team. And thanks to everyone who contributed to the crowdfunding to make that possible. But they opened the arguments, the technicalities, as well as the more profound arguments about the nature of the crime. But the technicalities are what changed it all. The fact that Tommy was prosecuted with such indecent haste. 5 hours after he was arrested. He was in prison on a 10-month sentence. I mean, that's just totally unusual, you know. That doesn't happen. And the police actually lied after Tommy was arrested. They were contacted. Tommy needed his own lawyer who understood the nature of the case and understood the nature of contempt of court. Not just a court lawyer, which was what he was provided with. But when his legal representative tried to contact the court to see if he could speak to Tommy, he was told by the police that Tommy had been released. And this went out to Russia Today and into the media that Tommy had actually been released from custody. And it was a lie. They just did this to fob off his lawyers and the media. And so it was shocking, you know. The whole case was shocking. It was a kangaroo court. It was a stitch-up. And it did look so bleak for Tommy. But thank God for Uncle Sam. Thank God for Ezra Levant. Uncle Sam, I mean the Americans who supported him big style. And Tommy's won over an international audience. He's won over an international support team. And that's really told for him in this situation. Because it had just been left to the British government and the British media and the British judiciary, he'd have had no chance. And that's a sad state of affairs. And thank God indeed, that Tommy had much wider support than that. And the Americans came to the rescue. Ez Levant, who's a Canadian, he came to the rescue. And they've got Tommy free. And Tommy now is more famous than ever before. A bigger name than ever before. When this first broke, when he was first arrested and incarcerated, I was asking everybody, what do you think of the Tommy Robinson situation? 2 out of 3 people didn't know who Tommy was. And of the 1 and 3 who did, most were very vague about it. Now Tommy is world famous. He is an international folk hero. He's a latter-day Robin Hood. And so he's got a big stage to play on now. Have your holiday, Tom. Take a deep breath. Refresh yourself. Get your health back. Get your strength back. And then speak out on the issues. Speak out on your own issue. Because this is an issue of civil liberty, of freedom of speech, and of British justice. It used to be called the finest justice in the world. Now there's such a big question mark over it. I mean, thank God this High Court lawyer gave us, in his judgment, a fair assessment of the situation. But I don't think that would have happened but from the pressure from North America. For ordinary Joe Blogs, whether you're a Paul Golding or a Jada Franson or anybody else who's caught in their net, you haven't got a hope. They'll just squash you, and the media will join in that attack. This is there are no tribunes of the people out there anymore. The only guardians of the people of Britain now are the people themselves who use social media to speak out and who back people like Tommy Robinson. And what a campaign we fought to get Tommy free. Those rallies in London were fantastic. The constant sort of information and support on the internet, on Facebook and Twitter, brilliant. On YouTube. It's just great that the common people have won a battle here today. We've won a battle against the elite. And it's a battle we're going to carry on to the next one, and we're going to win this war because we represent what is true, what is just, and what is right. That's why we're going to win this. And that's why Tommy's release today is something to be truly celebrated.